let me yield back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranking Member Reed. I'll now turn to Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Hagerty and Ranking Member Reed, and to Chair Atkins. Thank you for being here and for your service. I appreciated finally receiving more details on the President's budget request, and I hope more broadly this is not the new normal for this administration. We need timely cooperation in order to draft our appropriations bills. I appreciate your appearance here today and the directness and clarity of your presentation. Taking a look at your proposed budget, it does include some cuts, particularly of concern to me is the Enforcement Division. And as you were just discussing with Ranking Member Reed, the number of career officials who've taken buyouts or have been pushed to retire. How many people have left the Enforcement Division over the last 6 months?
Well, so there's been nationally for enforcement 15% decrease, so it's right at the average for the agency overall. And again, you know, we have a deep well of experience, and not just here in Washington, but throughout the regions, and so we have very competent people. And as we look at you know, going forward, our request is stable as to you know, previous years, and so you know, where there are gaps, we'll fill them in, and you know, I have confidence that we'll be able to do the job that we need to do with what we have.
President Trump signed an executive order that paused all future investigations and enforcement actions under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act for at least 9 months, if I'm not mistaken. No, for 180 days, forgive me. I recognize this applies to the DOJ, but the SEC also plays a critical role in helping implement FCPA. You're authorized to share information obtained with the DOJ if they uncover potential criminal activity. I'm troubled that the president in this action seems to be deciding which laws will be enforced and which laws will have their enforcement suspended. Is the SEC under your leadership still prioritizing enforcement of the FCPA? And has the SEC offered any evidence to the DOJ that's been rejected due to that executive order?
Well, I can't speak to any particular, you know, investigation or activity.
I understand you can't speak to any particular investigation, but you certainly can report on whether or not that executive order has resulted in the SEC stopping all investigation or enforcement of the FCPA.
Well, many of these cases involve many different aspects of the securities laws, so just that one section, yeah. And so, so to my knowledge, you know, nothing has been directly affected, but you know, I'm happy to get back to you on that.
I'd appreciate it. Earlier, you said the core mission of the agency you now lead is to protect investors against those who would lie, cheat, or steal, which I would agree with you is in some ways the core mission. The FCPA, although some have decried it as putting American business at a competitive disadvantage, I think actually puts us at a competitive advantage because foreign governments, foreign companies know that they can count on American business to secure its business advantage around the world fair and square, not through underhanded ways or not through bribery. So I certainly would appreciate your following up with me on what you see as the enforcement trajectory for the FCPA. Last, cryptocurrency is a very pressing issue, an issue you have a lot of experience with, and I come at this topic through the lens, of course, of my home state, which has long been an established financial services and banking center. You've endorsed allowing crypto exchanges to handle both traditional securities and crypto in one entity. If exchanges like Coinbase, that are crypto exchanges, are permitted to offer their services as well as more traditional things, stocks and bonds, how do you ensure they're held to the same rigorous standards as more traditional banks and investment firms?
Well, so that's part of our task now, to try to come up with regulations that make sense for the industry and that that allow for innovation. And so our task force, you know, is holding roundtables, and we'll come out with a report here in the next couple months, and we'll come up with proposed rules of the road to you know, and take comment, you know, in that regard, and then go ahead and go to, you know, go through with a rulemaking process.
Well, as you go through that process, I just urge you to hold to that core understanding of the role of the SEC to protect crypto investors from being harmed by fraud and market manipulation. The traditional financial services industry is subject to comprehensive regulation, and I think there's an understandable anxiety on their part about facing a direct competition from a financial sector that is lightly regulated or not at all. And while I recognize the value of innovation and of making sure that the United States remains on the cutting edge of innovation in financial services, I think that also has to be balanced with protecting investors and thus retaining the confidence that global investors have in the credibility of the American capital markets. And you have a unique role. I think your background and experience will be relevant. I very much look forward to staying in touch on this because I think this crypto task force you've put together is going to be critical. Last question, do you believe the SEC needs any new statutory authorities to regulate crypto and carry out the recommendations of the task force?
Well, thank you for that. It would be great to be undergirded by statute, but in the meantime, I think we have enough authority to under the securities laws to be able to come out with regulations in this regard. But it's always best to have that firm foundation.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.